Thinking about how what you're doing with sourcing is so different than traditional press, how they source and gather information, build stories. What kind of diversity do you think that's bringing to the content you're producing?
Well, I think there are a couple of ways you can slice that. On the one hand, I'm trying to reach out to sources that aren't part of the typical Rolodex that a reporter within mainstream media might have. It's all too easy when we're looking for subject matter experts to find people who have PhDs or work in this institution or whatever, whereas in many cases people have cultural, linguistic expertise and other things that can really add value to your work. And you just need to give them the opportunity to bring them in. And so I have people who translate for me, who know dialects across North Africa and the Middle East, people who track shipping lanes and flight paths and help identify munitions. And most of these people aren't, professionals in those subjects. It's just something they're very passionate about. On the other hand, you do have one challenge that there's a finite pool of people I can work with simply because I'm engaging people over the internet. And so for covering countries where the digital divide is still a serious issue, and there isn't necessarily a critical mass of people online, these methods can run into a bit of a wall because you really need to have people who have the access and the basic internet literacy to participate. And so, on the one hand, it diversifies sources, but it has its limits too.
So asking now about, I went to your panel yesterday, which was fantastic.
Thanks.
What I really love what you said was talking about clay shirkies. There's no information overload.
Right.
There's only filter failure.
Right.
So let me ask you about. You had talked a little bit about the filters you use. Can I ask you to talk about that again?
Sure. I think for people who don't use Twitter very aggressively, they assume it's just going to twitter.com and seeing their timeline of the people they follow. But if you're trying to cover many different topics at once, or you have a large number of people you're trying to follow, it's just very, very difficult to manage all that. And so I'm very much an advocate of using Twitter lists and using software, whether it's Hootsuite or TweetDeck or TweetBot, whatever. I'm not partisan about it. Tools that allow you to break up the people you're following into manageable chunks. So, for example, I will have a Twitter list that's basically greatest hits of all of my best sources across the region. Then I'll have separate lists for each country, so whether it's Egypt, Libya, Syria, etc. And then, as needed, I'll set up searches on different phrases and words. And so, if I hear something is happening in a particular place, I might do keyword searches based on landmarks there. Rather than hashtags, especially if the hashtags become overly popular, they have less use to them. So, you just have to try to parse it out as best you can and make it manageable.
And now I'm in a journalism program, which I've told you. So can you give us some tips for upcoming journalists using social media and kind of thinking of the new paradigm of how you get sources for your information?
When you think about learning tools within social media and other types of tools, think of it as expanding your opportunities to engage the public. My philosophy is I try to work almost like an open source newsroom, so people have the opportunity to participate. And so you could be a complete technological whiz, but if you're not comfortable telling the public, I don't have the answer to this, or I need help, then that's going to limit your ability. It was, I believe, Dan Gilmore who said many years ago that a journalist will never know as much on a given subject than their audience, and so you need to feel comfortable tapping into that audience. And honestly, not even think of them as an audience anymore. Think of them as part of your team.